Thank you, everybody, for joining on. We're excited tonight to get some more information about the PA Licensure Compact. My name's Aaron Woodall, and I am the current president of the Arkansas Academy of PAs. ARAPA has been working this year on a really exciting legislative package for our upcoming legislative session in 2025. This is possible through the support of AAPA and a state advocacy grant that we were awarded. So thank you very much to AAPA for their support. This has allowed us to hire a lobbyist, and so we are working with a firm, Universal Strategies, who has been helping us through our package, helping draft some legislation that we are introducing for 2025. So we're very excited about that. One of those pieces is the compact that we're going to talk about tonight. Our other legislative goals for 2025 include looking at getting PCP status with Medicaid for PAs in Arkansas, as well as being able to delegate tasks to MAs or medical assistants. And then the third objective is to join the Licensure Compact, which Carl's going to tell us more about tonight. We're excited to announce we've actually filed all three of these goals in the last 2 weeks as ISPs, which is an interim study proposal. So these have already been filed, and they are going to go before the Public Health Committee in the Senate next week on Monday, the 25th. They've been filed by our sponsor, Senator Penzo, and so we're very excited to be working with him and to have some traction on all three of these initiatives very early ahead of the legislative session. So we're excited about our prospects there. If you're interested in learning more information about those other two goals, you're more than welcome to join on our legislative committee meetings or send me an email anytime. I'll have my contact information at the end. And so please feel free to let us know if you have questions or if you're interested in being more involved. With that, I'm going to move it on to Carl Sims, who is the Deputy Program Director for the National Center of Interstate Compacts, who is helping organize the PA Licensure Compact on a national scope. And he's been great in working with our state organization and with Universal Strategies to kind of help draft our legislation and is going to be helping us throughout the process and has worked with several other states. And so he's just going to tell us a little bit more about the compact, the national landscape. And Carl, I'll let you take it from there.
All right, thank you, Aaron, and I really appreciate the opportunity to present on the PA Compact. So, sharing my screen right here, it looks good. So the goal of today's presentation is really just to go through the basics of the PA Compact, how it works, what you need to know as a PA, and then some legislative considerations as well. But to the extent that you have questions that I can answer about the mechanics of the compact, context for how it fits in to interstate compacts more broadly, I'm glad to be answering any questions you might have. So we'll first start off by just explaining a little bit more about who we are at CSG and the National Center for Interstate Compacts. So CSG is a nonprofit membership organization that serves the 3 branches of state government. So within CSG, we have the Technical Assistance Center that I work under, the National Center for Interstate Compacts. So we help states by providing educational services about compacts. So learning about what compacts they might consider joining, helping with the creation of new compacts, and then also assisting with the administration of existing ones as well. So one of those projects being the PA Compact, but we have had experience and been working on every occupational licensure compact that's in existence to some degree. So looking at the history of the PA Compact, so this is a collaborative effort among several different organizations. So first, to acknowledge the Health Resources and Services Administration, part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, awarded a grant to the Federation of State Medical Boards to really spearhead this effort. This has been, though, supported by the American Academy of Physician Associates, AAPA, and then the National Commission on Certification of Physician Assistants, who have been key partners throughout the duration of this project and continue to do so. So really thankful for them for their guidance and support. CSG was a subrecipient of the FSMB grant to help with the technical assistance portion of creating the compact, and then here on the legislative front as well, in providing educational services to states and stakeholders regarding the compact. So before we get in really about the PA Compact and what it does, we're going to first establish what is an interstate compact, knowing that it might not be a familiar concept to some of you. So our definition here is that an interstate compact is a legal legislatively enacted contract between 2 or more states. So this is through legislation that states are entering into that contract. A really common example to think of for an interstate compact is a driver's license. So your ability to use your driver's license and be able to be licensed to drive in any other state in the United States is thanks to a compact where states had agreed to mutually recognize that license without you having to get a license in every state that you want to drive in. So interstate compacts are there to help broadly for states to help cooperatively address their shared problems, to leverage resources while still maintaining sovereignty over those issues that are belonging to them. So thinking about interstate compacts more broadly here, there are over 270 that are in existence, at least that we've been tracking, and states are on average a member of 42 compacts. Altogether, over 2,200 total compact enactments we've been tracking. So here's some other examples of compacts outside of the licensure compact space. So everything from transportation to higher education, emergency management, and natural resources. Wherever there's a need for states to better collaborate and coordinate on a shared issue, there could be a space for an interstate compact. One of those issues being occupational licensure. So there are currently 18 interstate compacts available for occupational licensing, with a couple more on the way as well, and this is inclusive of the PA compact. Broadly, the objectives of licensure compacts are really to help facilitate multi-state practice in a streamlined way. We'll go over some more details, of course, about how the compact exactly does that, but its key goal there is to help streamline that process to make it available for safe and effective practice across state lines. Interstate compacts are also there to help maintain, even improve public health and safety, and that's because states are better coordinating across multi-state practice through the advantages of having a data system in place through the compact, able to share information about investigatory information, as well as adverse actions. And all this is doing so with the states preserving their own authority over professional licensing. It's reflecting how states are currently regulating the profession. So just looking at licensure compacts from the numbers here, there are 52 jurisdictions that have adopted at least one compact. The territories and DC are eligible to join interstate compacts as long as they meet the state requirements that's specified in the compact legislation. And you can see the trending nature of licensure compacts. There's been over 365 pieces of licensure compact legislation that's been enacted since January 2016. So getting down to the mechanics of it. So again, compacts are created to be a contract among states, and that's through model legislation that each state will through its own legislative process, will adopt that model legislation. That model legislation has to match what each other state is adopting. Otherwise, you don't really have an effective contract if the language doesn't match up. That model legislation is developed through a stakeholder-driven consensus-based process, that CSG's process, and that's where we're working with stakeholders, and what we've done for the PA Compact project in working with groups such as AAPA, FSMB, and CCPA to help develop that model legislation with regulators on the project team, but also having externally stakeholder information sessions to receive feedback during that legislative development process. So making sure that there's a good transparency to the process and really reflecting how states, again, are currently regulating the profession and the needs of the profession. So it's important to note also in that compact legislation, which really defines how the compact works, but also how it's administered, there are really two key parts, which we'll go into later on in the presentation. That's the state requirements section, so what states must do in order to join the compact and be continuing members of the compact, as well as for those licensed professionals who are, may be eligible to use the compact within that state. So the compact legislation specifies both in detail. Looking broadly at the benefits of licensure compacts. So first, for practitioners, as we've established, it authorizes practice in other member states. And in doing so, it's reducing the effort needed that would otherwise be needed from other pathways, such as your traditional licensure process. So this can be a product of both the time savings, the cost savings, as well as the maintenance part of it, as well as you would otherwise experience from that traditional licensure process. Again, we'll go into more detail on that later on in the presentation. Another key benefit of licensure compacts, it provides a very consistent way for someone to engage in multi-state practice, whereas otherwise you might need to navigate several different states, different licensure processes and requirements, submitting information that you might have already submitted to another state. The compact really streamlines that by leveraging information that's already available to states and being shared with those states that are members to the compact. And very important, the compact is a voluntary pathway, so not everyone might qualify or may want to use the compact. They may just want to have their single state license, so they won't be required to use the compact if they don't wish to do so. So for the benefits for patients, so because of that facilitated way for a practitioner to have multi-state practice, really increasing the availability of services. So that's a benefit, of course, to patients that for both in-person services as well as telehealth as well. This can also help in certain situations like continuity of care opportunities where the provider may be more likely or have greater ability to have multi-state practice privileges and to provide continuity of care should the patient or the provider be relocating temporarily or permanently. And because of that increased access of providers, it can also help with promoting practitioner diversity as well that may be available to patients. And then lastly, because of states better coordinating on discipline, it really enhances patient protection as well because they have access to a good amount of and expeditiously information that's available through the data system. So things including significant investigative information, adverse actions, states are able to share that quickly with each other so they can take appropriate action to maintain public health and safety. Pointing out some benefits for regulators, it's important to note what the compact also doesn't do. So the compact doesn't change a state's scope of practice, nor does it change its initial licensure process. Again, compact is just a voluntary pathway that could be available for practitioners from a compact member state. So anyone using the compact would have to abide still by that scope of practice where they're providing services, where the patient is located. And again, because it's a voluntary pathway, that initial licensure process doesn't need to be changed. Another benefit for regulators, again, with the facilitating the exchange of licensure and disciplinary information to the data system, that's a benefit to them in being able to administer that multi-state practice effectively. And through the Compact Commission, that's the government agency that's created by the compact, that's comprised of the compact member states. There's really an intentional and consistent way that states can cooperate in regulating the multi-state practice through the compact. Here's a look at the licensure compacts that are currently in existence. So that, again, there are 18 in total, with a couple more currently in development. You can see here the corresponding numbers of the number of states that have enacted those licensure compacts. Our high mark here is the Nursing Compact, which just got its 43rd member from Massachusetts this week. So you can see here the different numbers, but they're really a reflection of how established those compacts are, how long they've been around. So these ones toward the bottom may have not had a good number of legislative sessions to really have those numbers increase to levels you see here. So here's another look at things with what we call a compact heat map, showing the different levels of participation across states. So those that are going to be in the darker shade of blue, we're going to have higher levels of participation in those 18 licensure compacts. Each state's going to be its own story as to why it's joined the amount of compacts it has. Could just be part of the kind of normal flow of legislative process, or the capacity for state associations to be able to effectively advocate for it if they so choose. But just know that for the states that haven't joined a licensure compact, the really value for them to then later on join grows because there is access to more states that are member of those compacts, and therefore availability for more practitioners that can be providing services in their state. So looking at the PA Licensure Compact in particular, and first establishing the basics of how it works. So again, for a licensure compact and for the PA compact, that any compact member states that are enacting the compact legislation, they are agreeing to mutually recognize an unrestricted license for a PA in another compact member state. And they're doing this through what we call a compact privilege of practice. The compact privilege is the authorization for a PA to provide services in another compact member state. It provides the same benefits as licensure. So qualified PAs who are licensed in a compact member state, there's an application process for them to apply for that compact privilege, and they must do so in each compact member state that they would want to provide services in. So a few more words about the compact privileges. So one, there would be a fee component to it. So that's really in two parts, though it would be collected at once during the time of the application, whereas we've seen how other licensure compacts have operated. So the state itself would assess a fee. So anyone who's wanting to purchase a compact privilege of practice in that state, that state would select what fee they would want to charge that PA. And then the Compact Commission, that government agency that's administering the compact, they'll pay for its services, that data system, they would also assess a fee. We do know from other licensure compacts that generally that fee is going to be equivalent or maybe even a bit less than the cost of a license for what we've seen experience, and that's to help incentivize use of the compact, as well as maybe a reflection of the reduction in administrative burdens that might exist from the benefits that the licensure compact provides. The compact privileges expire when the qualifying license expires. So you have that consistent awareness of when compact privileges will need to be renewed. That's all tied to your qualifying license. And there could be renewal fees that the state and the Compact Commission may also assess as well. So important to note here that, again, the PA must abide by all laws and regulations of the state where they're providing services, or otherwise known as where the patient is located. And that will also include things such as any collaboration or supervision requirements that a state may have, prescribing authority. And then if the state opts to do so, the passage of a jurisprudence exam. So again, this is reflecting how states are currently regulating the profession, the compact being a way to help preserve that for states while still helping facilitate multi-state practice. So here's a kind of a step-by-step for the compact privilege process once the compact is up and running. So first, if a PA is licensed in a compact member state and they wish to get a compact privilege of practice, they would go to the PA compact website. So they could see that list of the compact member states that they could currently purchase a privilege for. There would be a way to check their eligibility criteria, see what the fees might be for those states, and then go through an application process. Now, by application, it's really not going to be a way that will be a lot of time for that to be reviewed, because the information that's already in the data system is really helping verify that PA's eligibility. So the compact member states, they're submitting information up to the data system that will establish and confirm if a PA who's licensed in their state is eligible. So really the data system, the application is just verifying the information that's already there. So it's a fairly instantaneous process for someone to be granted that compact privilege, assuming that they pay the fees and can attest to things such as passing a jurisprudence exam, again, if the state opts for them to have that as a requirement. So assuming that the PA is eligible and it's been verified through the data system, they're granted that compact privilege to practice. So they have the ability to practice a compact member state, but again, must make sure they have other components in place for practice that might be specific to the compact member state, again, such as supervision or collaboration requirements. So speaking a little bit more about the compact advantages and specific to a compact privilege of practice. So again, the compact is providing really uniform standards for compact member states. So that application process from one compact member state to the other is going to be pretty uniform. Really, the only differences to consider is just, again, your knowledge and awareness of those additional practice requirements that might be required, as well as taking that jurisprudence exam. But really, for the other licensure compacts, the design of those systems includes the ability to apply for multiple privileges at once, because there's a uniformity of that process, and it's all being administered through the Compact Commission. So this is help alleviating that time and cost and complexity that might otherwise be there if you're having to go through another state pathway, and understanding, where to apply, how to apply, understanding, what documents you need to submit, and then the time that would take to evaluate that application. That's all being alleviated through the compact. And one important thing to note here that I haven't really quite underlined is that while there are other pathways for multi-state practice that a state might have, and the compact can be complementary to that, the compact is unique in that it's not only allowing for practitioners who are currently outside your state the ability to, in a more facilitated manner and a reduced barriers way of providing services in your state, but it's also allowing for those who are currently licensed in your state to also be able to engage in multi-state practice in those other compact member states. So in other words, it has a kind of bi-directional approach, whereas most of the, or really all to my knowledge, of the other pathways for multi-state practice are more about those coming into your state rather than helping those who are currently licensed to practice outside the state. And then on the maintenance side for the compact privileges to practice, so again, because the renewal cycle for the privilege is tied to your license, there's that consistent renewal process. You're not having to track different renewal timelines that you might otherwise if you have multiple licenses, for example, already. continuing education requirements. The compact does not require you to meet continuing education requirements for those privileges to practice that you might have. You are required to meet any requirements, including CEs, to maintain your qualifying license of which you're using to access the compact, but there's no additional requirements for that privilege of practice for CEs. So it's a way to help reduce a duplication that might otherwise exist. Looking at the compact requirements, so first for state requirements to join the compact. So this includes both prerequisites for a state to join the compact as well as their participation after joining as well, so what they must continue to do. And then that other section is individual requirements. So for the PAs who are licensed in that compact member state, there are certain requirements that must be met in order for them to be eligible. Again, these are largely a reflection of how states are already regulating the profession, and is not something that will need to entirely be submitted to the application process because states are submitting that information to the data system. So thereby, whenever you're applying for the compact privilege or practice, it's helping verify the information that state has already supplied to really assess and verify that you are eligible for that privilege. So looking through some of those state requirements to join the PA compact, some of these are pretty obvious, including licensing PAs, but there's also a need for states to make sure they have a mechanism in place for receiving investigative complaints in case of adverse action. They have to have a criminal background check requirement in place. This is one area where we know not every state might have this currently in place, but for the purposes of the compact, they have to have it in place in order to be a participating member. Utilize passage of recognized national exams such as the NCCPA PANCE exam, which I believe is common for all states. Some other ones here that are fairly stock for most licensure compacts, including complying with the rules of the compact commission, participating in the data system. So this is more on the administrative front to make sure that their participation is maintained and that the compact is able to do the things that it is set out to do. So on the other side, again, here is the individual requirements for someone to obtain a compact privilege should they be licensed in a compact member state. So this includes holding an unrestricted license, having graduated from an accredited PA program, holding current NCCPA certification, and then again, reading through some of these that are more kind of in particular here, meeting any jurisprudence exam that the other compact member state that you're wanting to apply for privilege may require. Some other kind of prerequisites here as far as adverse actions. So PA, in order to qualify for a compact privilege, must have not had any limitation or restriction on a license or compact privilege within the previous 2 years. They must have not had any felony or misdemeanor convictions or have had a controlled substance license or permit suspended or revoked. Next, I'm going to walk through some scenarios regarding adverse actions to give you an idea of what that would look like. So first, important to establish that the participating state, the one that has issued a qualifying license, has the exclusive power to revoke a license. So another compact member state can never revoke a license. However, the remote states do have some authority to remove any compact privilege which they have issued based on that qualifying licensure. So kind of here's a kind of a list here about what states can and can't do. So compact member states, they can investigate and act on a privilege for anyone they have granted a compact privilege for. They can also participate in joint investigations with compact member states. But there's certain things that they can't do through the compact. They can't act on a privilege that was issued by another member state. They can't deny a privilege or investigate a PA for something that PA did that was lawful in another state. And they also can't specify what laws and regulations a PA must follow in another state that is determined by the state of which they're providing services in. So they're not able to tell their licensee that, hey, in that state, you can't do that, or you can only do this. That again, that's bound by the laws and regulations of where the patient is located. So starting with this scenario of someone who has a primary state qualifying license in one state and has purchased and received 3 compact privileges. So say in scenario 1 that something happened in state A, and state A, based on that action, went through an investigation and determined that they wanted to revoke that compact privilege. So that information is then shared through the compact data system with the other compact member states. So then they can assess that action that was taken, the information underlying that, the investigative information, and then using their own state's laws and regulations to determine if they want to take similar action or different action or no action at all. So in scenario 1 here, just say that the states reviewed that and determined, nope, actually that's based on our own laws and regulations, we're fine with that PA continuing to practice in those states. That state A compact privilege is still revoked, but they're still able to practice in those other states. So let's say in scenario 2 now that action still happened where state A revoked the compact privilege. And then again, that information was shared with those other compact member states. But in this case, states B and state C took a look at the information and did decide to revoke the compact privileges to practice. In scenario 3, and I kind of made this separate here because there is a distinct difference if the state of qualifying licensure revokes that license, because the license is what gets you into the compact. If that license is revoked, either based on information from another compact member state or based on some kind of action that was specifically occurred in that state, if the license is revoked, that does automatically revoke all the compact privileges that have been granted. Again, it's because that license is what is being recognized by those states. And in order for that privilege to be granted, it has to have something to be recognized. So if the license is revoked, then therefore you're not able to access the compact. And again, there's that provision in place that you're not able to access the compact then until at least 2 years have elapsed since the ending of that adverse action. So next, we're going to take a look at the current status of the compact. Here's a compact map. It's on the compact's website, the pacompact.org. So you can see the states here in the yellow are current members of the compact. There are 13 in total. And then this is reflective of 2024 of legislation that is still filed. So that includes Michigan, New Jersey, and North Carolina. And we know that there are probably a dozen states that we've heard of, including Arkansas, knowing that there'll be interest or actions already ongoing to file legislation for 2025. I believe in Nevada, that legislation was actually filed this week. So a lot of momentum we're expecting in 2025. But again, here's the current look at things. So in the compact legislation, it specifies that at least 7 states have to join the compact in order for the compact to begin its process of becoming operational. So that activation threshold was met this year. So the compact commission was formed with those member states, and they met for the first time this year, so they can begin that process. It usually takes 2 to 3 years for the compact becoming operational to occur. There's a lot that needs to be done as far as starting up their operations. Essentially, you're starting up a new government agency or creating that data system. You have to have certain rules and policies in place for that. So it does take a good amount of time for that to occur. But once the compact is operational, fairly consistent for it to continue with operations with the compact commission's continued guidance and administration. So here's a little bit more information about the PA Compact Commission. Again, it's comprised of delegates from the compact member states, so commonly from the licensing boards from those compact member states that can include primarily administrators from the licensing board. The Compact Commission, in addition to its duties of just getting things up and running, including the data system, does have duties including rulemaking, as well as the ability to establish fees in order to generate revenue to account for the expenses of things like the data system and staff that it may hire. Here is a screenshot from the PA Compact website showing a little bit of information that's currently available on the PA Compact Commission. So included in this is the roster of the current commission members, as well as links to any kind of rulemaking that they're currently considering. There's a process for public comment included with the rulemaking. There's also a commission meetings page here. So if you're interested in attending any of those meetings, there's also the ability to do so and seeing the agenda and the posted notice of those. In each of those meetings, there'll be a public comment and question and period available as well. So highly encourage you to check that out if you're more curious about the commission's operations. So lastly, I'm going to finish up here by talking through some resources and support available to states. So I mentioned the PA Compact website. AAPA also has a great resource on its website regarding the PA Licensure Compact. I posted the URL here as well. So as far as support that's available, and this is in addition to the support that AAPA provides state chapters, CSG is there to help provide specific compact support. So that includes legislative support. We're there to help verify that legislation that's being filed maintains that contractual nature with those other compacts, those other states that are looking to join the compact. Again, kind of make sure the language is matching up in order for it to be a contract. We're also there to help provide legislative support by the way of testimony, providing kind of educational presentations that we can, answering questions along the way, and any other kind of resources that might be helpful for a state in their consideration of joining the compact. So with that, I'll finish up with any questions you all might have. Realize you probably had a few in the chat here, so take a moment to stop sharing my screen so I can take a look at those. But if you do have any questions and want to raise your hand or come off mute, be happy to take questions that way as well.
I can help moderate for you. There was one put in earlier from Gary. It asked if Arkansas approves the compact and another state allows a PA license for a foreign medical graduate who has not passed the PANCE, would Arkansas have to allow the PA to practice?
So there's, again, this is going to both the PA compact requirements for the state as well as the requirements for those who are licensed in the in that state as well. So in looking at that specific scenario, that person has to have current NCCPA certification. So I believe, and maybe Shannon, correct me if incorrect here, but I believe in order to get that NCCPA certification in the first place, they'll have to have passed that national recognized exam, the NCCPA PANCE. There's not really another pathway for that.
Yeah, and this is Shannon, and I think we looked at the language that is actually in the compact also protects from that. So this is not really an issue that we expect to be seen, and there is sort of a carve out for that. And in addition, that sort of FMG issue who is practicing as a PA, who has not passed the PANCE, is being addressed in a number of ways. So the number is, the outliers that found a loophole are being addressed.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? If anybody wants to put it in the chat, or feel free to unmute. Carl, I know a question we get a lot from members and that we've heard from other parties as well is just clarifying if a PA will need an SP or supervising physician in their state, or if their current SP would have to also be licensed in the other state in which they're seeking privileges. So if you could just speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, and that would just go to what that state would require. So if they're wanting a privilege in a state that requires that supervising physician be licensed specifically in that state, then that's how it would have to work for that PA who's in that privilege of practice. I'm not aware of maybe a state that might be a little bit different than that. But again, it just all ties back to what's already being required in those laws and regs for the state that they're providing services in.
Thank you. Follow up there. Another question that we've gotten a lot for Arkansas specifically is that Arkansas is not a part of the physician compact or the IMLC. Are there any other states that have joined the compact yet? Do you know that aren't in that as well?
Know that there's 42 compact member states for IMLC. I'm not aware of any that might have that distinction as well. I can glance probably very quickly at the compact map for IMLC. And no,
Virginia is not in IMLC.
Yeah, you're right. Virginia is not a member of IMLC, but they are a member of the PA compact.
It's good to know. And like I said, I know that's kind of a concern we've had from some people, is that Arkansas is not in there. So. Anybody else have any questions? One other question I know I've had from some members is, and you kind of addressed on there, was just about regulatory actions, and you kind of went through the different scenarios of how that plays out. So I think that was helpful. But I had a specific question from a member before, just asking about, like difference with providing an actual license compact versus the privilege. And so like, I guess, can you speak a little bit on just if there is any advantage to it, the setting up as privileges versus granting full licenses?
Yeah, so the privilege provides the same benefits as licensure, that providing that authorization to practice in that compact in that state. Really, the advantages are really in the process to get that authorization versus that traditional process for a license. So going back to some of those processes, going through the application process, it's verifying information that's already been supplied to the data system to provide that more instantaneous approval should that eligibility be confirmed by that information that's in the data system. And I really think that one of the key benefits is that maintenance side of things as well. So not having to track different renewal cycles, not having to maybe do duplicative CE requirements, I think is a really key advantage of a compact privilege versus a license.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Any other questions from anyone? I'm just going to share real quick. Thank you all for being on. For our members, if you are interested in learning more about some of our legislative goals, we do have our next legislative committee meeting. You're welcome to join in there, and there's no commitment then that you have to join the committee or any sort of time requirement there. Even if you just want to sit in and listen, we have our next meeting coming up December 10th. Then I've included my email as well as the email for our legislative committee chairs. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, or like I said, if you're interested in that meeting, let me know and I'll get you those invites. But with that, if we don't have any more questions, I will go ahead and adjourn for tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you all.